Yo, what is up everybody, Jay again, welcome back to the Naruto reaction video here today. And today we got a fairly contentious hypothetical scenario that Swagkage talks about in this video. And as you can tell by the title, that is Itachi versus Killer Bee. So guys, like I just said, this matchup is definitely fairly contentious. However, my thoughts going into this video are this. It is fairly implied that Itachi is superior to Killer Bee, right? Think about it like this in a linear fashion. Killer Bee was bested by Kisame, even in his Phase 2 QB cloak mode. He still failed to get the best of Kisame. Kisame took him down, as we all know. And as far as Kisame is concerned, when interacting with Itachi, all the way back to part 1 of Naruto, it is easy to imply that he even gives the nod himself and acknowledges that Itachi is his superior. There are various encounters and dialogue between the two implying so, such as when they saw Jiraiya walking with Naruto, and Kisame basically told Itachi, hey, even if you were to take on Jiraiya, you might not beat him, right? Implying that he's acknowledging and giving the nod that Itachi is in fact superior to him, right? So if you use that linear sense of logic, you can make an argument for Itachi. Furthermore, his Genjutsu, I believe, is so powerful, at least the Tsukuyomi, that even Jinchurikis cannot get out of it, meaning the tailed beast inside of the living host cannot break you out. If I'm not mistaken, the Tsukuyomi is so powerful that even the tailed beast inside the living host cannot break you out of it, implying that even though Killer Bee has a very impressive symbiotic mutualistic relationship with the A-tailed beast, the A-tailed beast would not be able to break him out of the Tsukuyomi. Alright, so with all that being said, I do believe Itachi will get the better of Killer Bee in this one. However, I am very intrigued to see what Swag himself has to say about this one. But before we begin, anyways, really appreciate it. Hit that like button, turn on bell notification to stay updated with yours truly. And if you're new and you enjoy and you mess with the kid, man, make sure to hit that sub button, because once you do become part of the family forever. But let's not waste more time, screen. See what Swag says about this.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Swagkage here, and welcome to today's video, where once again I have the best sidekick on the platform, Clyde.
What up, Clyde?
And so today you can see the title for yourselves. I am talking about Killer Bee versus Itachi, because what kickstarted this whole thing is, so I was browsing Reddit after talking to Seth one day, just out of curiosity.
Oh, Reddit.
Because he and I got on the conversation about the Naruto subreddit's opinions about us, just because I've seen a couple posts here and there talking about me, and I wondered what people thought about him. So I looked up Seth the Programmer, and there was this one post that I don't remember how many upvotes it had, but I know it was like calling Seth a fucking idiot. And then there was another post on that,
of course,
saying like, oh yeah, Seth, he doesn't know what he's fucking it might not have been a post calling Seth an idiot, actually. The OP might have just been asking people what their opinions were. But a person answered the OP by saying that yeah, Seth's an idiot because blah 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 blah. B was the strongest person the series had ever seen after Pain died. He would definitely crush Itachi. And I'm like, alright, so this person seems to dislike Seth because Seth thinks that Itachi would beat Killer Bee. And I was just like, huh. So I'm scratching my head, and I tweet out so people really think that Bee could beat Itachi? And a whole bunch of people replied with wow, yeah, Bee
very surprising.
Itachi. Now plenty of people, thankfully, were level-headed. They know their shit, and they actually said no, Itachi would tear Bee in half. And that I was thankful for that, but there were so many people who thought that Bee would win, and I was just like, all right, I guess it's time for me to make a video about this, because yeah. But before I get into the video, just gonna give a quick shout out.
To be fair, like I said, it's fairly contentious, and it's understandable to some degree why some individuals would come to the conclusion that a Killer Bee would win. There are some outlandish arguments to be made. I'm sure Swag will touch up on that, but I don't think they're complete idiots for believing that. They're wrong in my opinion, but I don't think they're complete idiots. But let's continue.
Anyway, moving on to the actual discussion, I'll go ahead and let you start out with it, because I've been talking for a very long time. And yeah, so what are your thoughts about Bee versus
Itachi? So I'm surprised at how many people think that Bee's just going to casually slap Itachi.
Likewise.
So they're basing it off of the Sasuke fight a lot. This is obviously where it's coming from. And we need to factor in that Sasuke didn't have a Susanos. He was spamming the fucking Amaterasu like a maniac, and using the lightning style against a lightning member. Let
me cut you off at the Amaterasu thing. He only used it once or twice maximum. So
well, no. Because what I was implying was, since getting the ability after that, he was very gun-ho.
Oh yeah, of course. But he wasn't spamming it like a maniac in that fight. If he was, it probably would have gone much differently, and B actually might have gone
I only say that.
Quickly,
I only say
fair
that
point.
He almost got cut in with it. So
yeah, of course. He was being reckless with it. That's the point. Sasuke Sasuke just, I think what you're trying to get at is Sasuke wasn't being very smart going into that fight like he normally is.
Look,
and I agree with you.
Yeah, alright, so, and if we're matching up...
Fair point.
Obviously stamina issues, he's not sick, he's fighting Killer Bee, you know, going against him. He has Susanos, which it isn't your casual Susanos, it's got a mirror that can block any fucking attack, seal anything it touches, so... and to be honest, in terms of general combat strategy and, like, just intelligence, he seems like he's a lot better of a fighter than Sasuke at that stage.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, so Itachi's always been a better strategist than Sasuke. I would argue that, I mean, like, even adult Sasuke doesn't even compare to Itachi intelligence-wise. And I'm a sauce-tard. Like, Sasuke's one of, if not my favorite character, but Itachi's shitting on him in terms of intelligence. Itachi's like the smartest character in the whole series. You can argue he's even smarter than Shikamaru, so yeah.
Yeah, like, of all the characters in the series, I've never really liked Itachi that much. Not because there's anything wrong with him, but I'm not sucking his dick. I don't actually like him that much.
I like Itachi a lot, but I don't rep him in verse.
I mean, he's my favorite character personally,
so
but
this one's blatant because there's so many ways it could end very quickly. It's like, exactly. Alright, he whips out the Susanos with the sword that Killer Bee has no fucking idea about because, and we can back this up, he actually got information from Naruto next to him. He's like, yo, we don't want to mess with this dude because he has a genjutsu, so how's he gonna know
well, here, let's back it up too. Like, let's not even go into the Susanoo yet. The thing that many people seem to forget is that Bee and Naruto have actually fought Itachi, and Itachi was doing just fine. As a matter of fact, so first of all, let's go ahead and establish that Itachi, while weakened by Edo Tensei, was fast enough to keep up with KCM Naruto in hand-to-hand combat. The same KCM Naruto that dodged an attack from the Raikage. Seth and I always bring this up, you know, it's just really easy to use this to scale Itachi to make him relative in speed to somebody like KCM or the Raikage. He's like really fucking fast. And B is not that fast. He's never shown anything that implies that he's that fast. You know, he's definitely stronger than his brother A, the Raikage, but he's not faster than him. I mean, again, there's no evidence to support that, and I mean, like, if he was faster, you'd think it would have been established, but, you know, anyway, I'm going off on a tangent about speed. That's not the most important thing here. Clyde was mentioning just a few minutes ago that Naruto says to Bee in the fight against Itachi, listen, if Itachi hits you with either Tsukuyomi or Amaterasu, you're done for. And okay, so, like, a lot of people argue that Bee can break out of Tsukuyomi, and I'll get more into detail about that later, but, like, this seems to completely dismiss the idea that that's possible. Granted, here's the thing. You can take Naruto's statement with a grain of salt because, one, he's not as good at breaking out of genjutsu as Bee is. Itachi trapped him in a basic genjutsu, and Kurama did nothing to help him get out of it. Whereas
that's a fair counter-argument.
As soon as Sasuke used a genjutsu on him, Yuki was just like, yeah, let me snap you the fuck out of that. But Naruto doesn't have that, so he might not know how easy it is for Bee to break out again jutsu as opposed to him. Kurama also wasn't helping him out by this point in the game, so, you know, it is a bit different. And on top of that, it's even easier to take this statement with a grain of salt because of the fact that Bee did get hit by Amaterasu and survive because he used a substitution jutsu, but, like, it nearly killed him. I mean, it shut him down in the... Well, granted, you could actually make an argument that he let himself be put in that state. That way he could escape from the Cloud Village. But still, Amaterasu was fucking him up, and there really wasn't anything that he could do about it.
And there's also the conversation, like, what sort of genjutsu did Sasuke use against Killer Bee anyway?
It was just
a
basic
one, or...
Yeah, it was just basic genjutsu. It might have been Mangekyo genjutsu, but it wasn't Tsukuyomi because Sasuke doesn't have Tsukuyomi.
Correct.
Yeah, that's the thing, because I've heard more than once that Tsukuyomi works a lot different. Like, regardless, it'll still affect you, even with a tail beast in you, so...
It's supposedly impossible to break out of for anybody that isn't a relative, anyway, and there's been nothing shown in the series to contradict this yet. Obviously, you don't want to take statements as facts, as made evident by this video Seth and I made. It's probably going up after this one. There's a video Seth and I made where we talk about the statement Itachi made about Jiraiya being allegedly stronger than him, which is, like, ridiculous. He was there with Kisame, and they both ran away. Jiraiya in base is not soloing both Itachi and Kisame. You know, that's an example of a statement that's not entirely accurate, but again, nothing's been shown to contradict the idea that nobody but a relative can break out of Tsukuyomi. And even if you don't want to use, like, that statement as fact, Tsukuyomi works a lot differently than most genjutsu do. Like, it lasts for like 0.01 seconds. As a matter of fact, it was supposed to be, according to the light novels, 1/100th of 1/1000th of 1/1,000,000th of a second, if I remember correctly. It could be a little bit different, but regardless, it's this really tiny fraction of a second. I'm pretty sure actually it's exactly a picosecond, like something that's like ludicrously quick. And like there's nothing that Yuki would be able to do in that amount of time. By the time he realized B was being affected by a genjutsu, B would already be fucked. He'd just be mentally broken the same way Kakashi was after he got hit by it. And now you can make the argument that because a Jinchuriki and its tailed beast share the same mind, they would be observing time at the same speed. So, you know, Yuki would be observing the effects of Tsukuyomi at the same rate of time that B is. But, I mean, I guess that is the only way you can make a case that B could break out of Tsukuyomi with Yuki. But, you know, there's a whole lot of assumption that you have to do to reach that conclusion. And on top of that, even if that's the case, it still might not be possible considering the statement that Itachi made about it being impossible for anybody that isn't a relative to break out of Tsukuyomi. And not to mention the fact that it's a really, really, really strong genjutsu.
Correct.
It might even start fucking up Yuki's mind. I don't know. But again, there's a little bit of assumption and uncertainty surrounding that point. Whatever. Amaterasu B has been shown to survive as well. Sure, fine. But then you come to the Susanoo, which Clyde was talking about. I'll give the mic over to you in a second when we start talking about the Susanoo. But what can B do against that at that point? Really nothing.
Yeah, literally nothing. I mean, like, he could stand from air distance away and shoot, like, tail beast bombs, maybe, but, like, that's... If it's point-blank range, then surely he can deflect them. On top of the fact that if he whips it out at close range, post-genjutsu, it's done. It's just, like, sealed. That's it.
Well, yeah, if he whips it out at close range, B is getting sealed by the Totsuka Blade. And the Totsuka Blade isn't small. It's huge, right?
Correct.
And... now, like, I don't know about you, but to me, if Itachi can seal Nagato with the Totsuka Blade with, like, no effort at all, you know, it took him a grand total of, like, 30 seconds, I don't see why he wouldn't be able to seal B, especially if B enters his big-ass 8 tails, like, tailed beast mode. He's a
That's
huge
how I
target.
imagine it happening, too.
Alright, so we're about halfway through this video. I'm definitely going to give my thoughts on this so far. As far as the Tsukuyomi, it is just implied throughout the narrative storyline of Naruto that it is the epitome of genjutsu, at least until we get to the war arc, obviously, with the Project Infinite Tsukuyomi, when Madara does it to the whole world, right? That's probably the only superior genjutsu to Tsukuyomi, which Itachi has. And, like I said, it's just obviously narratively implied that the Tsukuyomi is the epitome of genjutsu, and hence it can be argued, I believe, that even a Jinchuriki that is the caliber of Killer B would be done for if he were to be caught in it. There's an argument to be made that maybe even the tailed beast gets caught in it because of the sheer power of this genjutsu. There's also the argument that maybe the tailed beast just doesn't have the reaction time to stop Killer B's demise, right? It's a picosecond, which is just astronomically slower than a second, implying that maybe Gyuki wouldn't be able to react in time. It's just such a vastly fast genjutsu that Killer B would be dead before Gyuki could even think of something, right? There's an argument for that. Obviously, it is not 100% confirmed, but I believe it's closer to confirmed than denied based off statements, based off the lore, etc. Now, going to the Edo Itachi versus Naruto and Killer B fight, there's a lot there to imply that Itachi, yes, is superior to Killer B. I mean, Nagato, as an Edo, was beating Naruto and Killer B down, was about to tear Naruto's soul out while having Killer B in another arm at the same time. And Itachi, once he broke out of the Edo Tensei Jutsu thanks to Kuro Matsukami, he immediately saved them and immediately disposed of Nagato in a very impressive fashion, indicating that Itachi could be possibly superior to even Nagato, right? And I believe that fight itself, Kishimoto had it painted out that way to imply that Itachi is in fact a very, very formidable shinobi, and in fact one of the strongest shinobi to ever live. Non-six pass, all right? I'm not saying that he's on Jubito's level or Jubidar or any of those people. I'm talking about, you know, the regular world of Naruto before things get crazy, post-war arc, all right? So, yeah, so with all that being said, the burden of proof would be on the person arguing for Killer B, because the feats aren't there for him, right? Even the argument that I'm going to say right now is kind of negated. The argument is this. Killer B was able to react to Minato when Minato reacted to A back in the Third Great Ninja War. When he was about to kill A, right, Killer B was able to sprung one of his tentacles in the way of A to save A, and Minato ended up cutting that tentacle. And someone would say, well, that means Killer B is faster than Minato. However, Killer B and Itachi actually swapped hands. And Itachi was competitive with the guy. I would argue even faster than the guy based off his feats against Nagato, right? So even the speed feat is contentious. Hence, like I said previously, the burden of proof would be more so on the Killer B side than the Itachi side, because the narrative storyline supports the theory that Itachi would be Killer B and not vice versa. So far I think Swagkage and Clyde are establishing a good foundation to point out the fact that it is very, very possible that Itachi would be Killer B in most scenarios. But so far this is a good video, and let's continue.
Yes, it is. He's just making himself a target. It's like he has firepower, but Itachi has a shield to block it, and then he can seal him straight away.
Yeah, Itachi's Yatamira can block all jutsu. It's stated.
And he's also going to be mentally ruined post Tsukuyomi if it hits. So it's like, is he really going to be thinking straight? He would get sealed really fast. Like, this is really one-sided if we look at it like that.
It depends on whether or not you want to assume that Tsukuyomi works on him. Like, if it doesn't work, fine. Even if you do, Itachi also has a Matarasu, and if you want to write that off as well, B survived it before, so you, like, fine, whatever, but you can't deny that the Totsuka Blade is an insta-kill. B is not, like, somehow magically resistant to it. Like, if it affected fucking Nagato, it will affect B. It's just that simple.
Yeah, and it also sealed Orochimaru's, like, huge-ass, like, snake thing, too, instantly. Like, as soon as it touched him, it was, like, locked in, that's it.
Exactly. Not to mention, Nagato tore B and Naruto to pieces. Give him like 30 seconds and both of them are dead. If not for Itachi being placed under the influence of Koto Amatsu Kami, they would have been fucked, especially if Nagato had Itachi on his side.
Oh, yeah.
It took Itachi saving both of them for Nagato to go down, and they barely did anything in that fight anyway. That was essentially Itachi versus Nagato with a little bit of Naruto and B thrown in the background. The only thing Naruto and B did throughout that entire fight was help disrupt the Chibaku Tensei. And I know B does not have anything on the scale of Chibaku Tensei. Otherwise he would have been able to deal with it on his own. I really don't know what sort of fucking argument you can possibly make in B's favor.
I agree.
Well, how do you picture the fight going? Like, let's say, you know, Itachi was going to go get Killer B like what Sasuke was. How would you see it going?
Well, he probably knows about Jinchuriki's resistance to like basic genjutsu. So what he would likely do is, in order to figure out how fast B is, he would send a shadow clone to fight B up close, and you know, they would exchange in hand-to-hand combat. B might be able to hit it with a couple sword swings, but Itachi is, I believe he's faster. I'm not going to say that like that's a statement of fact, but like, everything
I agree with that assessment.
Lends credence to the idea that Itachi is a much faster fighter than B, and there isn't a whole lot of evidence to support otherwise. So Itachi's clone, it would be a little bit weaker than him, so maybe B would be able to outspeed it, but Itachi would still get a decent idea of how fast B is. And he also has the Sharingan plus the Mangekyo Sharingan to help him read B's movements, and Sasuke was able to react to the Raikage at point fucking blank range and like dodge his elbow bolt and land a Chidori on him with his Sharingan. So, you know, Itachi, a much more seasoned user of the Sharingan, would have no problem reacting to B's movements. And so, again, you know, he would send in the Shadow Clone, figure out how fast B is. He'd be like, okay, fine, whatever, I'll be able to deal with this guy. If the Shadow Clone ends up taking any fatal damage, Itachi will probably detonate it the same way he detonated the Shadow Clone that was fighting against Kurenai Asuma. I can't really tell you what had happened after that. All I know is Itachi would probably try Tsukuyomi, and if Tsukuyomi doesn't work on Jinchuriki, then Itachi would know better than to use it. He would conserve the chakra. He probably wouldn't go for a Matarasu unless B powered up into his Gyuki state, and even if B did transform into the Eight Tails, then Itachi would probably just bust out the Susanoo and seal him with the Totsuka.
I agree with that.
Yeah, that's how I see it going too, because if the Genjutsu works or it doesn't, like, he's going to transform straight away, and then that's when the Susanos would come out, like you said,
it's that simple. There's really no way B can do anything. Like, I'd love to be like, well, maybe B would be able to do it. Like, I keep giving him the benefit of the doubt in resisting a lot of Itachi's jutsu, but there is no resisting the Totsuka blade, and there's no bypassing the Yata mirror. Like, the only person capable of doing something like that would be, like, fucking Madara, who can create an AoE attack that would, like, damage Itachi from behind or something. But like, a tailed beast ball, it's not gonna penetrate the Yata mirror. Not happening.
It won't, because it's literally, like, just deflecting a large-sized tennis ball that's going to explode in the opposite direction.
Exactly.
And then, like, can't B do that, like, beam attack thing with the tail beast, like that yellow one? So it's like that. That's even better. Like, that's going to be deflected right back, or it's just going to vanish when it hits the mirror. So it will.
It
that's how
might
it's going to
knock
happen.
Itachi on his ass or something. Like, the explosion might cause a Susanoo to
the
shake,
sheer
and it
impact
might injure him a little bit because of, you know, the physical trauma created by such a powerful shockwave, but it's not going to fucking kill him.
No, that's just, honestly, that's how it goes. I like the idea that you said it clone working to see how fast he is, because obviously he's going to be by himself.
That's a very realistic scenario.
Back up like what Sasuke did.
Yeah.
Sasuke had a lot of reliance on the others he was with, but
right,
the way you said is pretty much exactly how it's going to go, and then that's it.
I agree.
Game, set, match. Like, Itachi wins.
There's so many statements that, like, make this, like, it paints this battle as one that's in Itachi's favor.
I agree.
You have to ignore a whole lot if you want to say B comes out on top. That's the problem.
Agreed.
Here. Like,
Agreed.
you can make an argument like that maybe B could win, but, like, you have to dismiss all of the stuff that we talked about with Tsukuyomi, Amaterasu, and all of that other shit. You have to ignore the idea that the Totsuka blade one-shots anything it touches, and you also have to ignore the Yata mirror being, like, and here's the thing, right? You know, when I say, like, I'm not saying that the Totsuka blade allows Itachi to beat anybody, but B has no clue what it fucking does, and he's a big-ass, like, he's big-ass fucking Jinchuriki target. Of course he's gonna get hit by that shit, and it's that simple. But, yeah, anyway, I've kind of carried this outro on for long enough, so, that'll be all from me.
Great video, guys. Very informative.
Talk to you later. Swagkage out.
Alright, Swag and Clyde. Peace. Alright, guys, there you have it. That is Swag's and Clyde's thoughts on this fairly contentious hypothetical scenario matchup. I want to start out by saying this for my 2 cents now that the video is over. The matchup is contentious enough to have somewhat of an interesting discussion and or debate. However, I believe the burden of proof is heavily on the Killer B side, right? Because there is just tons of proof and implications to be made in Itachi's favor, right? So let's sum it up real quick here. We got the Kisame, Itachi, and Killer B transitive implication to be made, right? It's obviously implied Itachi is superior to Kisame, right? And then Kisame takes down Killer B. Hence, Itachi is superior to Killer B, hence a transitive implication is made there. And that's a very fair one, right? There is the literal scenario with Edo Itachi and Edo Nagato, where Naruto and Killer B were seconds from being finished by Nagato, and Itachi, once he's broken out of the Edo Tensei Jutsu, he immediately takes care of Nagato, basically by himself, and seals him very easily, right? So there's that. With all that being said, the evidence is on Itachi's side. It's on his side. And I didn't really speak on the jutsu specifically, but yeah, he has Tsukuyomi, which I believe would take Killer B out due to, one, Gyuki not being able to take him out of it because he just can't, because the Tsukuyomi is the epitome of genjutsu, or two, Gyuki would literally not be able to react in time to do so, right? The show, the narrative storyline just implies that Tsukuyomi is the one-shot jutsu, genjutsu, right? And it's fair to say so. I think you have more burden of proof in saying that the Tsukuyomi wouldn't affect Killer B, right? Itachi literally states himself, you cannot break out of this genjutsu. And Itachi is one of the smartest characters on Earth in the shinobi world, right? Quite possibly the smartest. So, if you don't take his statements as fairly strong proof, then I don't know what you do. I don't know what you take as proof at that point. To Swag's point, you can't take every statement as 100% concrete fact, right? Because that's not a good way of doing things, logically speaking, power scaling wise speaking. But all in all, the burden of proof is on the Killer Bee side. There is not much to go off of. You'd have to make some outlandish arguments and really make some headcanon assessments when arguing for Killer Bee. You're just in a losing battle overall when arguing for Killer Bee. And all in all, Itachi, on a balance of probabilities in an infinite domain of infinite scenarios, he would beat Killer Bee in most of those. In the vast amount of those, I would argue. So there you have it. Again, this was contentious enough to speak on, and I thought it'd be interesting to react to this one. But my previous assessment of Swag's opinion was correct. My opinion is the same. I agree with just about everything he said. The burden of proof for the Killer Bee side is heavy, and the burden of proof for Itachi's side is really not there because there's tons of proof to be given. Tons of implications to be made from the narrative storyline. Alright. And just power scaling wise, it's implied that Itachi is superior. So there you guys have it. That's my thoughts on this one. This was very interesting. Let me know what your thoughts are on it. And maybe you think Killer Bee wins. And if you do, please let me know why in the comment section below. But yeah, guys, that's going to wrap it up. If you guys have any recommendations, please let me know in the comments. And I'll catch you in the next video. It's Jay the Great signing out. Peace.